Welcome to the VBU ForNotFor International Debate Competition. My name is Vignesh. I am your moderator for today. A brief history of the VBU International Debate that has happened. It has happened over a period of about a week and a half. We started on the 2nd of October, where we had about 128 students participating from about 100 odd schools from India and abroad as well. So we've had varied participation, people from the smaller states as well. We've actually had a lot of participation from the smaller states and not traditionally the majoritarian, elitist Bangalore, Mumbai. All those populations aren't really the big representations that we've had. So we're really happy that we've been able to give a platform to students from smaller areas and smaller cities. So really proud about that. The second thing that we need to remember about the VBU debate, this is the first of its kind with a virtual debate happening among 11th and 12th graders. And it's probably one of the biggest ones that has happened as of now. We hope people will replicate this model soon. To start off the debate, a few key things that we need to keep in mind. This debate is going to be live on Facebook. So if you want to moderate your opinions accordingly, please do. But ideally, we suggest you don't, because free speech is free speech. So on that note, we welcome the participants. We have participant number 1, Anchal Podar, participant number 2, Tejas Kulkarni. Please introduce yourselves before I introduce Mr. Akash Banerjee.
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Archal Pudar. I'm from the MGD Girls School, Jaipur, and I'm so glad that I could make it to here, and I'm looking forward for a wonderful debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Anchal. Tejas?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tejas Kulkarni from Jeshir Periwal High School, Jaipur, and I'm elated to be here. It has been an exciting journey, and looking forward to the final debate.
And now to our esteemed judge. I know Mr. Akash seems is going to feel a little awkward when we are going to read out his profile, but please, an audacious personality to have as our finals judge.
Can we skip that and get to the debate?
No. That's not how we do this. So I'm just going to read Mr. Akash's personality. So Mr. Akash Banerjee is a political satirist and a social media entrepreneur. He's the founder and host of the hashtag Deshbhakt, which is India's largest political satire platform that uses sarcasm and facts to showcase issues plaguing contemporary India. On that note, we also know that Mr. Akash Banerjee also runs a multiple personality situation on his platform, where he deals with both as Mr. Akash Banerjee in through concepts, as well as the Deshbhakt or hashtag the Bhakt, who deals with people like Ravish Kumar and asks them tough questions on being on the left and the liberal part of India. The second part is Mr. Akash also runs hashtag Social Buck Buck, a boutique social care consultancy specializing in personal and institutional branding, brand building, and content curation. He also has spent a decade and a half in the world of traditional media and was most recently vice president at Radio Mirchi. We're absolutely honored to have you here, sir. Thank you so much for taking your time. Please, a round of applause to Mr. Banerjee and to the participants. So after this long introduction, let's start with the debate. Mr. Banerjee, I hope you're familiar with the format of the debate, but just in case, I'm going to probably give you a little bit of tips. It's going to be 2 constructive speeches of 5 minutes each. So the first affirmative constructive, then there'll be a cross-examination part where this other speaker will cross-examine the first speaker by asking a question. Then it moves on to the negative speech, cross-examination after that, and then moves into a rebuttal speech from the affirmative and the negative. Post this entire process, we will have questions from you to each of our participants. On that note, audiences, please mute yourselves, keep your videos off. I am moving into the coin toss for the participants so that they can decide which side of the debate they're going to take in. Tejas and Anchal, who wants to call for the toss?
Anshul, would you like to?
Can I do it this time?
Yeah, sure.
I would go for tails.
Okay, let's go with the toss. It is heads. So Tejas, you get to choose affirmative or negative.
I would like to be the negative speaker.
Ooh, nice, controversial. Okay, on the topic that this house supports a world or prefers a world without borders, we invite the first speaker on affirmative, Anchal Podar to start their speech. Do you need a minute to prep?
Yeah,
Okay, you can take a minute to prep at best.
thank you.
No worries. So Bhakt Saab, you have to tell us what is the new video coming up, anything that we can look forward to other than what is already coming up?
There is never lack of content, you see. So itna sara content free mein kahan milega? So content is never an issue. Right now, of course, after we've got a new episode out. Just last evening we made one, because after saving the world from Tablighi Jamaat and
Right.
after getting justice for Sushant Singh Rajput, now Republic Channel is getting justice for itself.
Oof.
So Arnav is now for a change fighting for himself. So now there is this whole TRP war that is going on, and it is very, very important for us to understand how flawed the TRP system is, regardless of whether whatever channel you want to watch, that's your prerogative, but how you should not go with TRPs. That's a debate that you should definitely have on the kind of media consumption that we are having today, and the flawed metrics for the consumption. It's just like the award shows, you wonder isko award kaise mil gaya. You realize that the whole award show is rigged. In the same way, the whole TRP system is a very flawed metric, and we are made to believe that this channel is number one and that channel is number two, while everybody is in on the game. And who plays the game best wins.
Right, that is true.
So that's what we've done.
Fabulous, sir. Hoping to hear that soon. On that note, Anchal, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir, I am.
Fabulous. Thank you, everybody. And the floor is yours, Anchal. You have 5 minutes to construct a speech.
Thank you, sir. Greetings to the House at large. The motion in the House today is that this House prefers a world without the concept of borders, and I firmly stand proposing the motion. Ladies and gentlemen, it was just a couple of days back that I was actually thinking about a world that was without borders, a world which was just a sphere without any deep engraved lines. And I always wanted the world to be a peaceful one. So today it seems like I'm speaking for my dream. To begin with, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk about how a world without borders would be a world without border disputes. And the amount of peace that it would establish in the world would be unimaginable and enormous. Ladies and gentlemen, today most wars that are fought on the basis of a territory or a piece of land, because countries place their splurge for a piece of land over their value for a man or a woman. Let us take the very recent example of Armenia and Azerbaijan, ladies and gentlemen. The two countries are fighting a war, and a 15-day period has led to the killing of large number of people, and it is a war over territory called Nagorno-Karabakh. Ladies and gentlemen, civilians are dying. I saw a mother cry on a television news channel, a reliable one though, wherein her son was out and fighting the war. The one between India and China, ladies and gentlemen, is also a territorial dispute, and the one between India and Pakistan, which has been continuing since decades and decades, over a territorial area called Kashmir, under the veil of which millions of people on both ends of the borders have been killed, maimed, murdered, slaughtered. What have these borders given us, ladies and gentlemen? Conflict, armed attacks, deaths, and nothing else. A world without borders would be a world without an arms race. The world leaders today would just take a back seat and they would stop running in the huge race that they are running in, because there will be no army. Because there will be no disputes, no army, no conflicts, and thus no deaths, ladies and gentlemen. And that would lead to the establishment of an extremely peaceful world. I would like to talk about and take an instance from the past, ladies and gentlemen, of how dismantling borders have led to the establishment of extremely peaceful and happy areas. Talking about East and West Germany, ladies and gentlemen. In 1989, the people on both ends of the borders, they broke the Berlin Wall themselves. And that led to the unification of Germany, which is one of the most peaceful and happy countries today. And talking on the other end, very ironic, the Soviet Union in 1991 broke down into, dismantled into pieces. And today we see Armenia and Azerbaijan fighting a war against one another. Ladies and gentlemen, I, as side proposition, stand here validating the existence of a world which is peaceful and united, and where men and women are valued more than a piece of land. The next constructive that I would like to move towards, ladies and gentlemen, is how the absence of borders would lead to the establishment of equality. equality between developed, developing, and underdeveloped countries, because all countries could just amalgamate their resources and work towards the benefit of humanity as a whole and the international world community. I would just like to take a very, very small example and try generalizing this to the entire world. Let us take the example of the Paris Climate Agreement, ladies and gentlemen, where two of the most big rivals, United States of America and China, they're actually amalgamating their resources and capital to deal with the worldwide problem of climate change. Now just generalize this to the world, and the benefits would be extremely clear. Therefore, I, as side proposition, validate the existence of a world without borders, because that would lead to the existence of a world which is peaceful, which is unified, and second, which is extremely equal. With this, I would like to rest my case. I'm extremely proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Anshul. Tejas, you can get to your cross-questioning.
All right. So, my worthy opponent, you talked about how the wall between East Germany and West Germany was broken down, and now it is a very peaceful uh, solution, and it has worked out pretty well. Well, Germany is a small country in terms of culture, in terms of land. You talked about the Soviet Union, the disintegration of Soviet Union, and how the disintegration has led to wars and unpeaceful scenarios over there. Well, I would like to talk about another large land area and a large body which has adopted the system of not disintegrating but to integrate and to segregate. I am going to talk about the European Union. Here we are debating about having borders or not. Well, the concept of not having borders is already in front of our eyes. The European Union. The latest development in the European Union is Brexit. Brexit has shown us that the whole process of not having borders, which has enabled free flow of people to different countries in the European Union, is a highly unpopular decision. There are strong repercussions to
Tejas,
Brexit.
I'd like you to finish your question, please.
Yes. However, the disappearance of culture and lack of opportunities for local people has opened the eyes of the British government. Don't you think we might see many Brexits all over the world by countries which want to revert back to having borders if we make our world borderless?
Thank you so much, sir, for your question. I would like to talk about why the European Union was formed. The European Union was formed for economic and political collaborations. And the reason why Britain exits the European Union, sir, is because it feels that there are that these resources are being irrationally utilized by the other countries in terms of their contributions to the European Union's economy. The reason, and even today, even if you visit the EU, the visas that you take, it will help you to visit the entire European Union, and it has stayed united until so many years. The reason behind Brexit is extremely different. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshul. Invite Tejas to start with his negative speech.
Greetings, judges, moderator, and my worthy opponent. The ultimate tale of the fish that understands all languages. The seas are wide and flow together. They have no borders and have room enough for all fish. This quote is only applicable to fish, as they are known to be the most primitive creatures in this world, and humans to be the most complex. And with complexity comes emotions. Emotions of happiness, sadness, and the most pertinent for this topic, nationalism, which entails to not give even an inch of your nation's land to those trying to acquire it and compromise its sovereignty. And national borders serve the purpose of demarcating what to protect. If the world becomes borderless, then there will be heavy migration from one country to another. With rising populations of various nationalities, religious faiths, cultures, and communities in a specific region, the culture of the people native to that region will get highly influenced by these foreign cultures, which with each progressing generation would lead to the impurity or extinction of majority of the cultures in the world. The art, folklore, and cuisines currently appreciated by people from all over the world of different regions will be nowhere to be seen. One more problem that removal of borders that would arise on a global level is extensive migration. If there are no borders, then people from underdeveloped and developing countries would migrate in heavy numbers to developed nations for better living conditions and better prospects of life. To put things in perspective, I would like all of you to please picture the 1947 partition in your minds. Just imagine seeing that picture at every present national border, just at a much, much larger scale. A whole country's population would move to a new location. Just imagine the murders, robbing, rapes, and I can say without doubt that such a picture terrifies each and every one of us. One argument in favor of a borderless world can be made that the governments would mediate the whole process of removal of borders. If borders are removed, I can say with utmost conviction that the Paki military on the other side of that border is not going to stay there and see the flowers of celebration showering. The ISIS in Iraq and Syria are not going to stay there. The North Korean military is not going to stay on their island. And that is the reality, and no one can change that. We must understand that every country in this world does not share the same ideology of world peace, secularism, democracy, and equality. Countries like Pakistan, China, and North Korea exist with sheer expansionist and unsecular ideologies, without even a trace of democracy, who are ready to violate any nation's sovereignty for their own vested interests. I would like to cite Article 2 of the UN Charter. All members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations. This proves even the United Nations, whose purpose is to foster and maintain world peace, has restricted the very consequences of removal of borders. The world map with borders that we see today has been formed by a natural course of evolution. The borders have been formed owing to the history, cultural heritage, government policies, and the natural resources found in that region, creating a natural balance. The removal of borders will disrupt this very natural balance. The extensive migration would cause excessive strain on natural resources in a small area. Currently, each country exploits its natural resources for its position in the world. The Middle Eastern countries are rich in oil reserves and generate money out of it. Mineral ores and agriculture in India and spices in Turkey, Lebanon, etc., respectively play the same role. A country's geographical position is also of strategic importance, like India has the lifeline of Pakistan that is water in its control, and every country should be allowed to do so in order to safeguard their interests. In the end, I would like to say that the borders of a country are instrumental to safeguarding its land, people, and culture, and no reason exists to prefer a world without them. If we assume the world to be borderless, let me tell you what will happen. There will be total havoc and decimation of social order. Riots, war, genocides, another Holocaust, nuclear missiles traveling at supersonic speeds over your head, you name it. Everything apart from world peace, economic prosperity, and social order. It feels good to say and hear about a borderless world which would enable free commerce, exchange of cultures, and rich ethnic diversity in seminars, speeches, and debates like this. But I'm sorry to say, the idea of having a borderless world is a utopian idea and leaves out the practicality of that world. Thank you.
Thank you, Tejas, for that speech. Invite Anshul to give her question.
Thank you, sir. So you talked about how people will move to developed countries. But ladies and gentlemen, that is what we argue here. No countries. And just as side proposition mentioned of how amalgamating the resources could help world community, how would you reflect on that?
Can you please clarify your question a bit more?
So my question is, you said that people will move to the developed countries because those are rich in resources. But there is no developed country. And just as I mentioned that there is an amalgamation of resources and that could help the entire world community. So how would you reflect on that then?
My worthy opponent, by removal of borders, the status of a country would change to a nation state. The governments are going to be there. You cannot establish a single government over the whole world. That is logistically impossible. And natural resources amalgamating into the population of the world, I never said that is going to happen. And even if the borders are removed, that cannot happen. Natural resources are native to a region and cannot be moved. That is the very reason why countries have been formed on the basis of government policies, natural resources, and culture.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Tejas. Thanks, Anchal. On that note, I'd invite Anchal to deliver her rebuttal slash summary speech.
Greetings to the House at large. Side Proposition has very clearly mentioned why Side Proposition believes that this world should be a borderless world in order to establish peace, unity, and equality. Ladies and gentlemen, we've all pondered upon what would happen in a borderless world, but we haven't pondered upon what is happening in a world with borders. We're having all sorts of border disputes, as I just mentioned in my speech. We haven't pondered upon that. We haven't pondered upon the fact that it is leading to disintegration of the world. And that is the main question that we need to talk about here. Therefore, Side Proposition strongly believes that this world shall be borderless to enforce everything which is positive. With this, I would like to rest my case and my rebuttal. Thank you.
Anchal, for your rebuttal speech. Invite Tejas to conclude the debate and give his rebuttal slash summary speech.
My worthy opponent, you mentioned in your cross-examination that there will be unequal distribution of resources. So, exactly my point. Why won't that happen in the whole world if borders are removed? Why won't that happen in the whole world? Why won't the countries who are exercising their veto powers, the developed countries, why won't they mobilize and snatch away the resources of the poor countries? In the European Union, when the economic depression struck, the poor countries in the European Union are still poor. The the unity that you talked about that will be formed when borders are removed, that unity was nowhere to be seen. The European Union, which calls itself a family, a group of nations which care for each other, did not care for the poor countries during the economic depression. Borders are not only barriers made of wires, rods, nuts, and bolts. It is classification of people with varying faiths, cultures, and way of life, and with good reason. Because the very essence of a country is the sense of collective belonging that its citizens share. If borders are not there, with extensive migration, this very essence of a country and nationalism will be long lost. There is a reason why unity and diversity is successfully practiced in India only. In the United States of America, we see crimes against people of color, and in Australia, against people from foreign countries. In 2009, 152 assaults were recorded against only Indian students in Australia. It is painful to envisage a world without borders where such incidents will be in daily news all over the world. In light of all the examples, facts, and figures presented, I would like to say that many vices exist in this world, but making it borderless is just going to add to those and not curb them. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that wonderful debate. Now we leave it to Akash sir for the questions, if he has any.
Why are you making me do all of this? Why are you making me question?
That is pretty much what you do on your channel as well, don't you?
Yeah, that's not a pretty sight.
No.
Okay, Anchal, tell me the topic. What's the topic today?
So this house prefers a world without borders.
Does it say anywhere physical borders? National borders, barbed wire borders, airport borders, passport borders. Does it say anywhere?
No, sir, but that is the way we interpreted the topic to be, because the
Well, you
word...
did not actually. I didn't see you interpret the topic. Did you say that this is how I interpret today's topic? This is how I define, this is how I see today's topic?
So the way I see today's topic is that we want a world which is borderless,
Mm-hmm.
wherein India and all the other countries are just one. It's like the nation is a big fat nation, like it's a big fat country. That is what I interpreted this topic to be.
Okay. And you also talked about USSR fragmenting and getting into a lot of chaos because there are some countries that are fighting. So you would rather have USSR be a united communist country as of today, happy all together?
No, so that was just an example to state against how the unification and how the disintegration could really happen. For
Mhm.
instance, I gave the example of East and West Germany against the example of the Soviet Union, because East and West Germany cut down and dismantled their borders, while the Soviet Union created their borders. That is where my comparison was.
And do you think that we can do away with something as basic as borders? Would you not agree that that was the first thing perhaps man fought for besides food was territory?
So that's exactly what I'm trying to say. That is the worst thing that man fought for. That was territory. So why do we have to keep that fight on and just do away with those disputes? Because I just mentioned at the beginning of what I said that today we need to do away with borders because most wars that are fought today is because of territory. So if we just have like one landmass, there is no dispute over the landmass.
Mhm. And would it not have been nice that you would have defined the topic as not seeing it as physical borders, because physical borders would become irrelevant if the human race is to progress forward? Why would you not want to talk about the role of the internet, where I can be working for a US company without crossing my border? Why would you not want to talk about the International Space Station, the most expensive object ever built by man at a cost of $120 billion with 16 nations participating in it? Why would you not want to do that? You would have walked away with the debate today had you done that.
Absolutely, sir, but that is exactly the way I interpret it. It might as well it be incorrect or just deviating from your thought process, but that is the way I interpreted it, to be very honest. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Tejas,
Wonderful to be talking with you.
same here.
Yeah.
Tejas, what is Paki? I don't know what is Paki. Can you please tell me?
The Pakistan, the nation of Pakistan and the military that it has.
So you're going to use niggers also while talking about blacks now in the debate?
Not at all, sir,
You would not use niggers. Why?
because it is offensive to a particular community.
And do you think Paki is offensive or a compliment?
It is neither a compliment nor it is offensive. It is just a slang used by
It's a slur. So
yes,
always
it is
remember
a
that
slur.
when you are in a debate, whether one is an enemy or not, you have to give adequate respect. Maybe this is an international debate and you would have immediately been disqualified because what you landed up was a slur. And I know the kind of indoctrination that happens. That's absolutely okay. But one day you will realize that this is the problem with the borders, is that you land up hating a nationality and the people who live in a nation because the two governments are fighting. And because one nation tries to, blame the other nation, which Pakistani government has been doing for the very longest time. But anyways, you have raised a lot of issues as far as migration is concerned. You're really, really worried about migration. So my question to you is that if migration is such a big problem and you are well equipped, you're educated, you want to go to MIT, so you're okay to be denied admission to MIT. You've got the grades, but because you're an Indian and your skin is brown in color and you're going to destroy the cultural synthesis of America, I will deny you entry into MIT. You're okay with that?
So we need to understand that when we are talking about admissions into a foreign university, we are talking about controlled migration. If I have been selected for admission in MIT, then having a visa and is the least of my problems. If the reason that I mentioned migration was that if removal of borders takes place, people will migrate in large numbers. One person from underdeveloped or developing country would move to developed countries and be prosperous. Behind him or her, 10 more will come. After that, 100 more will come. This is how the natural balance that has been created in the world using which is the very purpose of borders and countries will be lost.
Which state are you from originally? Are you from Jaipur, Rajasthan?
No, sir, I'm from Karnataka.
Oh, but the same argument is being given for states also. That boss, people are migrating from one state to the other, eating up jobs of the other states. Let us restrict jobs. Government jobs are being restricted now from states to state. So maybe schools admission would also be restricted. Then you would be denied admission into a prestigious school in Rajasthan, and you have to go back home and study in your state. Same logic.
Can
Same
you please
logic.
clarify your stance a bit more?
My stance is very simple. If you're saying that borders are to be implemented, you are also crossing a border, right? State border. And increasingly, state borders are also being seen as hard borders. You can't get admitted to a hospital unless and until you're from that area. You have to show your Aadhaar card, right? You can't get a government job because you're not from that state. So the states are also becoming nation states. So would you be okay with that? That you're denied a admission into a school because you're not from that state?
So that is not the effect of migration that I talked about. If the migration is implemented in a controlled manner, a certain number of people are only going to a particular nation. We must understand that if borders are open, then the pressure on natural resources and the institutions in place of any particular country will be under immense pressure, which will not be handled efficiently.
Okay.
And that would lead to disruption of social order. In a country like India, where there are where there are a certain number of states, and in the United States, where there are a certain number of states, we must understand that people of these states share a common ideology. They share a common sense of belonging towards the nation.
United States. They
The
call
United States.
themselves, they call themselves the nation of immigrants. I hope you know that, right? They very proudly call themselves the nation of immigrants. Well, technically that fact is wrong anyways. If you go and study the American Constitution and the American federal structure, every state has its own rules and regulations and laws, and they are very, very different from each other, actually. Especially North and South, US is totally different. You touched upon the role of UN and EU. Just explain that, because I thought you somewhere down the line lacked on taking that very good point forward, that we have tried borderless states, but we have not been successful with borderless organizations. Just take us through that.
So let's look at the formation of the European Union. After the World War II, the European countries, the very European countries which are the members of the European Union currently, were at war, were fierce enemies of each other. But after the war, they realized that they will have to unite and have a union of the countries. So the European Union was formed with some certain standardized parameters, such that visas will be common, and the recently that currency should be common. But certain countries like the United Kingdom opposed to that, saying that we will practice our own British pound and British pound will be in circulation. So we must understand that even in the European Union, competition is still there. The need and the urge of nations to have a particular singular identity is still there, and that need cannot be decimated. And especially, I would like to compare European Union and a hypothetical union which is formed in between the two Americas and Asia. In Asia, so many countries are against each other in economic terms and in military terms. Even in between the two Americas, there are tensions between the United States of America, Canada, and the Latin American countries. So it is obvious and it is rational to say that such a union cannot be implemented in these continents. And moreover, that results that such a union cannot be formed in the whole world.
Okay. But you're agreeing to the fact that controlled immigration might not be a bad idea.
Yes, controlled immigration is happening currently also.
Okay. So you don't want people to all get onto one ship and go to America, but slowly they can go. Right? Okay.
No, sir, that will lead to gradual disruption of the
gradual
culture.
immigration is okay. Okay, fair enough.
I did not say that.
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, fabulous. That must have been really fun for them to answer. On that note, I generally, during my moderation sessions, I generally like to give a few final thoughts from my end. One, I think in terms of, phrasing the motion, I thought, yes, the idea was to include borders without just talking about physical borders. It was the idea that we needed to include a borderless idea of humanity which includes internet, which includes your ISS, which includes space, everything, right? And forgive the law school point, like the law school in me coming out, but generally, when you understand borders, you need to understand the history of borders. You need to understand where the current sense of borders come from. And the idea that most of you have of borders being natural, being political, etc., needs to stem from the idea that you need to understand that colonization is the reason we have a large chunk of our borders currently. A large chunk of the way that we've defined India or defined most of our states is colonization. So probably read a lot more about the history of colonizers and how they've fragmented different states. So if you identify, say Europe, or if you identify the Middle East, most of it was done by the Brits, by the French, by the Germans, by the Belgians, by so many other colonizers in and around the place. Latin America, similarly, Spanish, Portuguese, etc. Idea is to understand the history behind this motion. The motion just doesn't ask you to envision a world. It asks you to look behind, look at the past, which is why any debate requires you to understand what is the past of the world, what the world would look like when we acknowledge the past. And that's the way we need to go about things. So thank you very, very much, Akash sir. Thank you very, very much for your wonderful comments and questions.
Achal has a quick question.
Yes, I just have a quick question, sir.
Yeah.
I just heard like the two of you, but I actually understood that you wanted us to interpret the topic a little differently, like breaking, like not just considering natural borders, but borders across humanity.
Yep.
But sir, to be very honest, sir, this like topics like these which require such interpretation or which require such going out of the way and thinking about everything inclusiveness, I think, sir, that those topics shall be accompanied with a context then. Because, sir, that gives you like an idea of, where you have to head. Because this topic, when we receive, it's just like we think of them to be natural borders. But if you, as the receiving end, if you believe that we need to like opt for like inclusiveness, I think a little context would be required.
Sure. I mean, if I did provide you context, I'd then be restricting the context to things that I think are the motions. I don't want to do that as well.
Achal, this is where, and I don't blame you because I don't know the kind of exposure that you've had to debating. But if you see debating, and you would have, it's a very close one at this point of time, I would say, between the two of you. But I can assure you that you would have walked through this debate. Let me explain how. First and foremost, the person who takes the more difficult side gets the sympathy of the judges. Okay, so when we used to debate in Delhi University, or when I used to debate in school, I used to go for the tougher side. Why? Is because we all know, come on, I mean, at the end of the day, we all know that borders ke bina to you can't really survive. I mean, we know. But we are not debating news. What you have to understand is, this is a theoretical construct that we are talking about. We are talking about a situation, an ideal situation. Very many debating topics are not based on this. Remember, a debate is not about a list of statistics. In college, we used to say there are three kinds of lies: black lies, white lies, and statistics. Because you throw one example, Tejas will throw another example. You throw one statistics, Tejas will throw another one. But, and here is the trick, and you'll use it perhaps in your forthcoming debates, is when you do a little bit of background research, when you do a little bit of study and say, this is the angle I'm going to choose. This is the line of attack that I'm going to choose. So if I was you, I would have chosen the line of attack. I'm not even talking about borders. Borders are irrelevant. They are prehistoric. Just like the horse carriage was. We have gone ahead from that age where borders are irrelevant. Of course, you will cling. You small thinkers, you cling on to your nationalist borders. But the people who are achieving stuff today, the Elon Musks of the world, are not going to see if my scientist is actually from, wherever, as long as he is, of course, legally an American citizen. But he will not look at the ethnicity of that scientist. That famous, I mean, it's a fake news, but the famous thing that it's Indians who drive NASA. There are a lot of Indians in NASA, but it's not like 70%. But the fact is that you have to see the theoretical construct, a angle of attack, and then you substantiate your lines. Tejas, on the other hand, could have actually gone hammer and tongs saying that, dude, we have tried this. We have tried this, we have failed. He touched upon it, but then he withdrew himself, going into too much. EU and the UN is a disaster. The UN is a living testimony. that borderless experiments really haven't worked very well. And EU, of course, Britain because of its own idiotic reasons, but then you'll always have these idiotic countries come up with idiotic notions and want to withdraw. So he could have played a lot more. A single line of attack is what you need, and then you substantiate it. But your definition becomes very, very important. And if you had just defined it away from physical borders and you're talking about that Earth as a border itself, I am talking about colonization of Mars. I am talking about global internet. What is Elon Musk announced last night? That now the Starlink system is ready. It's an internet service for the world. It's an Airtel or it's a Geo fiber for the world because I'll be connecting directly with the satellites up. Stuff like that, stuff like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hope that was edifying. Hope that cleared your doubt as well. So on that note, thank you, participants. We'll get to your results as soon as we're done with this. You can leave the room. Please thank Mr. Akash Banerjee for his wonderful, wonderful comments and knowledge that he spread to you. And then you can leave the room.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful being here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your inputs were really valuable.
Both of y'all are winners as far
ma'am.
as we are concerned. Okay.
Thank you.